Considering Suicide, my first published book, is something I don't really remember the origins of, except to say that somewhere around 2003, 2004, I was working on this kind of extended essay where, and it was going under the title, Is Life Worth Living? Now, Bishop Sheen famously has a published book called Life is Worth Living. And of course, if you are, if you have faith, your faith teaches you that life is worth living. But the whole conceit behind the composing of that extended essay, Is Life Worth Living, was to start without an answer in mind, and just to consider the possibilities of yes and the possibilities of no. And that extended essay went on in a bunch of different directions, reflecting somewhat on the politics of the day, but it took me a while to finish that essay. I was at it. I would start and stop, and then start again and stop again, and then because I didn't really know what was going to come of it. But then at some point along the way, I got really turned on by the idea of writing a diary from the point of view of somebody who is about to commit suicide, or who is seriously considering suicide, and who has set a certain date for when it's going to happen, unless he gets some sign from the cosmos that he oughtn't do it. That whole idea of writing the epistolary form, I guess it's not epistolary because it's not letters, but in a diary form, that somehow facilitated this writing, and it helped bring out this kind of persona, this kind of character whose perspective I was writing from. And it was fun and exciting to do, because, and this was really my first experience with this phenomenon. But if you, this is something, anybody out there, if you ever want to try it, see if it works for you. Take the darkest, most desperate aspects of your own personality. The really far out on the limb, edgiest kind of aspects of who you are, and the kind of things you feel like saying at times, but you're constrained by your own sense of morality, or by society, or whatever, for one reason or another, propriety. Just instead of holding back, just let this character come forth. Let it rage forth. And that was what I had going with this other piece, which became part of the larger the book Considering Suicide, which I titled Diary of a Suicide. And I remember writing this during the summer of 2005. It was while my wife at the time and myself were in Atlanta, house sitting at my parents' house. I had just finished teaching high school for a year. I was going to another job. I didn't have anything, getting in my way as far as writing goes. So I just kept a regular schedule, and I remember for the Diary of a Suicide part, I actually used the dates, the actual dates. So when it was, say, June 26th, I would have the author of Diary of a Suicide say that it's June 26th. But of course, I wouldn't, I would report things from his point of view, from the life that he's living, from the thoughts that he's having. But my whole idea, I had this whole idea which kept me going, which kept sparking the fire to keep writing, which was that maybe I would commit suicide by this particular given date. I knew that I wasn't really going to do that because I had a daughter who was 3 years old at the time. I had my son on the way. My wife was pregnant with my son at the time. So of course I wasn't going to off myself, but I just thought, as a way of just making it interesting and making it so that I was using myself or aspects of myself to again spark interest in what I was writing, and giving it this kind of immediacy and this personal aspect. It is deeply personal, and I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a lot of me that was in that character. But again, it's what I think of as it's this pattern or this way of writing that I inherited from writers like Poe, most notably, but also, I said most notably, but even more notably, Dostoyevsky, when he was composing Notes from Underground. That really became the template in a lot of ways. And Dostoyevsky is a big influence over my writing, generally speaking, I would say. As my daughter would say, or used to say, I kin with him. But another influence, I'm also a big fan of Kierkegaard, even though he's a difficult author, conceptually speaking. Sometimes I do really like his writing as well, and part of his enormously complex work that I can't say that I've read from beginning to end, called Either Or. One of the works that's included in that collection, which is organized in a certain way because Kierkegaard wanted it to have this particular kind of structure, which I won't go into now. But part of the structure is written from the point of view of the aesthete, the one who is living the aesthetic life. And he wrote like an extended length, kind of almost, I think, book length, or at least novella length work called Diary of a Seducer, or the Seducers Diary. And so I guess in some ways that was also a template for Diary of a Suicide, particularly with the title. So once I finished the Diary of a Suicide, then that gave me this more motivation to finish this Is Life Worth Living essay, which was meant to be, which was sort of Kierkegaardian in a way, because it was meant not to be written by me, but Kierkegaard early on used several pseudonyms, and I was thinking, as I'm writing here, this is not necessarily me writing. This is again a character, just like in Diary of a Suicide, but in a more subtle way. because here, it's a soberly written essay on the question of whether life is worth living. And the conclusions that he comes to in the end are not satisfying. I don't find them satisfying. And I've heard people criticize, there's been critics who've said that they don't find that, they think that the conclusion that he comes to is weak. Well, I agree with them. But at the same time, hopefully, I think it has a certain kind of charm, at least as a way of trying to, if you're writing from the point of view of someone who is an agnostic, who can't get himself to can't quite will himself into faith. This is the kind of solution someone like that might come to, and even if it's not a satisfying solution, it's maybe the best he can do. So that was the composing of what became the book, Considering Suicide. And I remember getting to know Chip Smith of Nine Banded Books somehow or other. I remember getting in touch with him and asking him if he'd be willing to take a look at my manuscript. And he said, yeah, sure. He was a fan from my he said from my last ditch essays, which I had written, started writing at the website The Last Ditch. Had started writing in 2003. A kind of a right-wing anarcho-libertarian race realist site. I guess that's the best way to categorize it. So, and I was a little bit of an oddball there, but the editor there, Tom Strachan, was very kind to take me on and to accept my writings. And that was how Chip Smith first encountered my work. So he read it, he liked it, and this was like 2006 or so, and I thought, okay, but I thought, this is great. So we signed a contract eventually, but somehow Chip, not to criticize him, works very slowly, and I came to know after that's not the norm. At the time, I just sort of thought, well, this is just the way it is working with an editor, and he wanted to change certain things around. He had suggestions about changing the wording here or there, and it was more than just clearing up typos or grammatical mistakes or punctuation mistakes. It was like he would have suggestions about rephrasing entire parts just because he thought this would serve it better, this would read better. And I agreed to a lot of his suggested changes. I refused a lot of them as well, or declined a lot of them as well. But I accepted a lot of them just because I sort of thought, well, okay, I just want to, I was wanting to hurry the process along. And again, I sort of thought, well, this must be what an editor does. An editor just, rewrites your work. Later I found out that was more of a Chip Smith thing and not an editor thing. So eventually the book finally came out in 2009, and I was pleased as punch to be a published author. I remember when I got my copies of it, I was surprised and slightly dismayed by the tininess of the print. If you purchase it now, you'll see the print is ultra small, and Chip had, he always has aesthetic reasons for doing what he does and publishing the way things the way he did. And I think he must have had there must have been some motivation for doing it that way. I don't know. Anyway, that was Considering Suicide, my first book.